Alright, shalom Israelites. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Do you really know Israelite history, or do you believe in the myths created about Israelite history? Man, a lot of Israelites, man, they be wanting that sensational history, and they be seeking the history that sounds spectacular and out of this world, and man, some history, man, that really just sound far-fetched. A lot of Israelites love that type of history. And history that they ain't really got to research, and they can just pick up a book, and since they know that they're Israelites, and that they could just feel good about any message about the Israelite history. Man, it's time for us to kind of get off that page and get on the real history and understand what's going on, so we can be ready when the time comes for us to go home. Because I don't think Almighty Yah is gonna allow Israelites back into the promised land not knowing no truth. It wouldn't make no sense to get all the way back home, to go through all this punishment, and then to get all the way back home to the promised land and don't know no truth. And that ain't making no sense. So some truth got to be known. And I think, man, the Israelite Brotherhood, I ain't just trying to flex all real hard, but I think that, the Israelite Brotherhood got the best history, and that's by the grace of Almighty Yah. I done been through a whole lot. And, and opened my eyes to a whole lot of things. So I might see a lot of things different. But all this by the grace of Almighty Yah. But, a lot of Israelites, man, they don't understand that it was other people in our heritage, and that we abandoned heritage. That can't sink into a lot of Israelites' mind, is that we abandon heritage, and they don't understand what abandonment means. And they don't understand that people was in the land. It was people in our land that we had allowed, and they was doing our customs. That's like the customs and the culture that we have now, even though it's negative, and then it go over to the other ethnic groups, and then how they do our culture. Well, it's the same in the promised land when we was there. That's when it started. It is when people start trying to do what we did, is when we was in the promised land, and to knock all the strangers that was in the land that we didn't get rid of, and they start imitating us. And when we ran off to do the Egyptian religion, they was there. They was there. And a lot of Israelites can't understand that, and they can't differentiate between the groups and the people and our history and what's not our history. And they just basically accept anything that they got an Israelite title on it, and then they look at the Caucasians and call them Khazars, and then just totally ignore their history, put them in the Khazar category, not knowing that the Caucasian stock been claiming our heritage, man, for a long time. Go all the way back to the Babylonian times. That's why those peoples that claim our heritage in the promised land are so rooted in our heritage, in our land, even though they done created their own versions of it. It's just that they've been held on for a long time, and that's why the world see them. Because when the world start developing means and ways of communication, we was already out the picture, and those people was in the picture when they start publishing books, and books start to be published and can be spread, men, around the world and so forth. And and then they start telling stories. Well, we was out of the picture, and those people was in the picture that we abandoned our heritage to, and the history is wrote about them. all the books and things, when they start mass producing books and books become available to the average person. A book at one time was for rich people and so forth in the ancient days. And then when books become available and they develop the printing press, then man, they start putting false history out, or they start recording history that was recorded about us, that they had councils and so forth, that they would debate and say, hey, can we make this holy? Can we make this part of the Israelites' real history or not? Man, they had a lot of that stuff going on in ancient times. Israelites, man, don't know that we abandoned our heritage to some sophisticated people from Babylon that were scribes and that got control of our heritage and that loved to write books. Loved to write books and wrote books in all the languages in all the lands that they went to about Israelite history. And Israelites will read anything associated with that. And then if they got some pigmentation, then they just think that it's automatically us or them, the Israelites that believe in this stuff that they think is us. And it's false. Man, it's false. You got a lot of Israelites, man, that, they get happy. And some of them, they got famous for showing false history. Man, I watch them all the time, man, on YouTube, man, with Israelites, man, believe in false history or believe in, what I mean by false history is that it's not real Israelite history and that it belonged to people that we abandon our heritage to, that claim Israelite heritage, that are not the true children of Israel. So it's going to be false history. Well, you got Israelites, man, that spread and embraced that stuff and then got famous and got big organizations based up off falsehood. Now, we got to wonder, do I have a right to call their history false? And I'm telling you, yes, easily, because those Israelites don't know that we abandoned our heritage during the Babylonian Wars. And man, it's right here, and it's not hard to understand. Man, I'm talking about it's real simple if you know dates and timeline. I got a video explaining dates and timeline, and when you understand what happened during this era or during this time, or what this book is about, that's like the book of Jeremiah. Man, it's basically wrote when we was having trouble with the Babylonians. And it's basically going to be our last act on the promised land for the 99%, meaning that a percentage, like 1% of us, was captured and taken to Babylon. Those are the good figs. They went on to Babylon like the Creator said, and that's in the book of Jeremiah. You can read the men about the good figs and the bad figs. I forgot which chapter that is. It might be 20 something. But anyway, let me show you this. We abandon our heritage with people in the land doing our culture, and that a lot of Israelites cannot understand that we went into Africa by way of Egypt to live and to stay and to discontinue our heritage and didn't want to practice it no more, and how we totally embrace Egyptian culture that we were somewhat familiar with from sojourning there. And plus I showed that we had a continuous history, or a continuous relationship with the Egyptians, even though we wasn't supposed to. And it kind of like got started like during Solomon's time, when Solomon married the Egyptian, and kind of like from then on out you can see like an Egyptian presence in our culture through Jeroboam, who went to Egypt and was from the tribe of Ephraim, and he brung the Egyptian religion out and put it on the northern kingdom that destroyed the whole northern kingdom. The whole northern kingdom monarchs was destroyed, the army and everything, because of the Egyptian religion that Jeroboam brung out, but that we was given one chance, and that was the prophecy of Josiah, King Josiah being born, and how he would clean the Egyptian religion up. And then that's a note that I want to hit on, that all the prophets that's like from 931 BC, when Jeroboam installed the Egyptian religion, that all the prophets after that was looking for Josiah to come about, the one that would clean the Egyptian religion up that was promised. And prophet Isaiah wanted him to come about, and prophet Hosea, and a lot of the prophets, knew that, that it was a king coming from the house of David that would clean the Egyptian religion up, because it was a oracle from one of the prophets going back to Rehoboam days after Solomon's death, and he said that that the Egyptian religion would be cleaned up, and that King David descended would do it, and it was done. And then the Egyptians got King Josiah. I say for cleaning the Egyptian religion up, and then we would go into Africa as a people and embrace their culture and religion, because Almighty Yah had sent some people at us that we couldn't deal with. And that's what I'm going to go into, that Israelites don't talk about and don't have no understanding about, and it's not in their history. They do not talk about Ashkenazi, or, the, the Scythians who were really Ashkenazi. They don't talk about them settling in our land and what become of them. They don't talk about the Sephardists settling in our land, and then what become of them. The Sephardists and what become of them. Israelites don't talk about that. And then how did they just pick up any Israelite history that they read in general, and then just claim it as ours? They not trying to account for who these peoples are, and then where they come from, and then how they fit in the Israelite history. Israelites ain't trying to account for where these peoples come from, where they come from, and then how they get in the Israelite heritage, because they showing up claiming it right now today, and they're in the promised land, and they been there, and they got control. But Israelites don't have that in their history, and they don't have no understanding. And then when they read Israelite history, they mostly read about the fairy tales, or the history that was created, the history that was created, about the Sephardim, or the Edomites, when their temple was destroyed in 70 AD, and then they ran across North Africa. Some of them settled all in North Africa, but they mostly went to Spain. They mostly went to Spain, and they was there under Islamic rule. Some before then, and then how Israelites take those people history, because they got pigmentation, and they been living across the coast of North Africa, and they acquired pigmentation through the Hamites and other folks, and how did they live and had a glorious history in Spain, and they had pigmentation. But Israelites acclaimed them, not knowing that those were the people that we abandoned our heritage to. They wasn't under the curses. They free to move about. They free to move about. They free to go where they want to. And then since they trying to do a Israelite heritage, they'll have some kind of blessings on them. And we see how that blessings turn out. We see how they blessings turn out. It turned out pretty good. It turned out pretty good. They blessings because they get to control some things. Man, they get to control a whole lot of things and have controlled a whole lot of things throughout history. And this is nobody throwing no bricks. Ain't throwing no bricks and no spears. We know how they control things throughout history. Ain't nobody dumb and stuff. And people understand, and even with the technology available today, people understand more how people of certain ethnic groups and certain religions background got a hold on the whole Western culture, especially America. But look here, this the blessings that the folks got. Man, that the folks got. The Sephardists got doing trade under the Israelite title. These folks right here, look, they will have pigmentation and they will be able to go into all the lands of the East with the Israelite title, and they would convert people in all the communities that they would settle in. And they settled in India, man, they settled it all in Malaysia, and man, everywhere east, they settled. All in Papua New Guinea, in Indonesia, Malaysia. Man, they settled in China, they settled in Japan. Man, they settled everywhere because they was merchants and they know how to build ships and have ships going all the way back to the Phoenician days when the Amorites and the Phoenicians kind of like was a mixture of the same folks, and then they sailed all around the world doing trade, doing the serpent trade, doing the trade for the serpent culture and so forth. Well, those folks would, be everywhere in the East, and they would have pigmentation, and they would have our heritage, and they got dispersed in 70 AD. But this is the thing that the Israelites don't know, is that when those folks come into our heritage, I got plenty of videos talking about the subject. If you listen to a few of them, that I'm speaking about how Ashkenazi and the Sephardists coming to the Israelite heritage. I explained that those folks were Amorites. They were Amorites and come from the Amorite culture that we didn't destroy, and how we let them into our heritage under deception and made them servants of whatever temple or whatever congregation or place that we build to serve Yah. We made them servants at it. Worst thing we ever did, because when we broke covenant and got chased out the land, they were still there, and they still had our culture intact to the detail. That's why come they able to do our heritage in the world and then seeing them as Israelites for so long. Because like I said, when they started creating the press, when they made the press, well, they were behind the press making themselves. But when they made the press and started mass producing books, people had been seeing them as Israelites for a long time. Since the Babylonian Wars, since we ran off, people had been seeing them as Israelites. So Israelites today, when they see them folks and then seeing that some of them got pigmentation, they think that that's our history that's being shown, or that we are related in some kind of way to it. And I tell you, it's false. And then that's why I come, man, I ask the question, do you really know Israelite history, or do you believe in the myths created about Israelite history? Because the people that got our heritage, that we abandoned our heritage to, they created history, after so many generations being in the promised land and us gone, they gonna think that they're the real Israelites. And they gonna think that they're the real Israelites, and people come in contact with them that they teach gonna think that they're the real Israelites. And that happened for thousands of years because we abandoned everything, and we abandoned the culture during the Babylonian Wars. If you go to Jeremiah, man, that'll be Jeremiah, uh, 17. Jeremiah 17, and we're going to get to verse 4, and this is coming after Tanakh. And it says, the inheritance I have given you, I will make you a slave. You see, this because we had, we was doing everything terrible. We was building altars and men worshiping up under trees, all kind of old stupid stuff the Egyptians and the Amorites had us doing. Look, you will forfeit your look. You will forfeit your own. No, man, let's get this right. We got to have this right. All right, man, it says, you will forfeit by your own act the inheritance I have given you. I will make you a slave to your enemies in a land you have never known, for you have kindled the flame of my wrath, which shall burn for all time. And boy, did that happen. Boy, did that happen. But you see what it says. Man, I'm going to read that again. You will forfeit by your own act the inheritance I have given you. I will make you a slave to your enemies in a land you have never known. Alright, the only land that we have never known is the Americas. And that's another thing that the Israelites that don't know real history believe in the myths. See, I explain in a few videos how did those Amorites, those Sephardics, come to the Americas. Come to the Americas, way with the Phoenicians doing trade, and they spoke Hebrew and can write in Hebrew. So when they find ancient Hebrew writings and so forth in the Americas and so forth, that Israelites automatically think that Israelites been here, been in the Americas, and this is our home, and we, so forth, that we some slick secret owners of the land. False, false. The people who we abandon our heritage to are Amorites, and they traded with the Phoenicians who come from Syria and so forth. They ancient homeland, they the same folks. And then how that they would sail all around the Mediterranean, all up to the Britain and so forth, and then go over to the Americas and do trade. That's why come when they come got us after Ashkenazi broke the Sephardic, the Sephardim Amorite control up in Spain through the Catholic Church, that those Sephardims, them Edomites, came down into the Africas where we was hiding at in the Niger and southern Libya parts, and when they took us to the Americas, and how they was well familiar with the land. I got a video that I made, the Amorites, discovery of America, America from Babylon, from sin from Babylon. Men is here because the peoples who we abandon our heritage to are from Babylon, and they created America's institutions and administrative government right off Babylon. And that makes this the daughter of Babylon. That they created the daughter of Babylon, and that's where they from. And they got in our heritage in 722 BCE, under the Assyrian kings and stuff. They snuck in on us. Let me see if I could pull that up. Second Kings. Second Kings. You got Samuel. Alright, First Kings. Alright, Second Kings. Yeah, straight out the Tanakh. Yeah, man, a lot of Israelites think they know real Israelite history, but they really be showing the people history that we abandoned our heritage to, and they don't wanna understand nothing else, and they don't wanna see nothing else, and they think that 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 what they doing is right, and they don't want to be seen as wasting their time studying other folks' history that is not us, and how they been tricked. So a lot of Israelites are hardening their heart and just accept the falsehood about our history as truth. I mean, that's cold right there, because they think that they've been studying for so long and that they got it right, but they don't know that they've been studying them people history, and that those people have a history because they've been in our heritage for a long time with the Israelite title and so forth. But look, them people was placed in our land in 722 BC. The scribes, the ones that wrote the false history that the Israelites be believing in. Now the other ones, the Amorites, them as Amorites, that's their main stock. They got in our heritage as Gabonites under Joshua, when he made them servants of whatever temple we would build, making an agreement with them without consulting Almighty Yah. But they came in by deception. See, they trying to come in by deception again, because they embracing a whole lot of African tribes that they converted long time ago, and they want us to come in under them. They gonna have them African Jews saying that we the Israelites, and then you have Israelites believing in the Hamites that was converted to our heritage as being Israelites, and then they believe in all other false history. Man, it's a mess. But it's gonna get straightened out, because you Israelites gonna have to understand this truth one day in order to get back into the promised land. Look, this is in 722 BC. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutter, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and placed them in the towns of Samaria in place of the Israelites. They took possession of Samaria and dwelt in the towns. All right, those people that was placed in our land while the northern kingdom was on Egyptian religion. While the northern kingdom was on Egyptian religion, a slick move was done to us, is that they was placed in our land and so forth. A lot of the multiple God worshippers were placed in our land, and I say that multiple God worshiping system, that false worship, gonna go back to the serpent, and was gonna be in Nod, and that serpent that told our mother Eve that it was okay to eat that intoxicating plant, and lied to her that he gonna be the ones that the folks be slick worshiping and don't even know it, and that he called himself a God's son, the son of the Most High, even though he was created man before Adam was. Let's see this. Let me show you this. And then the Israelites gonna be worshiping uh, uh, him when they worshiping any other religion or believe in any system, other than that. But but let's look and see. All right, we got the Genesis. We go to Genesis, and then we go to Genesis 3. Let's see what Genesis 3 is saying to Tanakh. I know what it's gonna say right here. It's gonna say, now the serpent was more suitable than any beast of the field which the Elohim had made. See, he was more suitable than anything. Now the serpent was more suitable than any beast of the field which the Elohim Yah had made. And he said unto the woman. So, he was more slicker than anything in a snake and so forth. Just, his low character. His low character and how he wasn't no good and was a liar and so forth. Let's look. I turned right to it when I opened the Genesis up. Let's see what Genesis 3 say. The two of them were naked, the woman and his wife, yet they felt no shame. Now the serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild beasts that the Elohim had made. Yep, man, same thing. Alright, so Israelites gonna be believing in the multiple God system. It's gonna come from lying and deception way back in the past. I show how a lot of the religions come about after we broke the covenant. I'm gonna probably make another video about that. But the people we abandon our heritage to, the Sephardists were custodians of the serpent culture and keeping its history with its gods and so forth, and they can manipulate the serpent's culture and history all kind of ways, long as it just gets you to believe in it, and you'll be believing in it if you don't believe in one Yah or just the Yah that Abraham worship. They create a lot of books. That's like they were so slick in the peoples that we abandon our heritage to, is that they created what they call a New Testament after the Tanakh closed and during the book of Malachi in 430 BCE, and how 500 years passed by with them folks in our land, and then how they come with the God Son stuff. I tell you, that's the serpent culture, and then how that they got Israelites believing in it. A great percentage of the Israelites right now today believe in the history, others use, men about us, or the false history that they done created. And that New Testament is going to be the peoples that settled in our land after we had gone. You would think that they would be the exiles, the ones that come back from Babylon, being that we, the 99%, ran into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. You would think that the exiles were the people in the New Testament. And I show that that's false. That's false. I show that the exiles were destroyed real fast and real quietly, because this dude right there, Tigonus the Great, this is just before Jesus was born. And then how he took over 10,000 Jews to Armenia from Jerusalem, and wasn't none of them us. None of them us. And some of their descendants is still in Armenia, and in those parts. Right up here. Right up here. Right there. He took them from here. He took them from here and took them right there. And how some of them still there. And ain't none of them no kin to us, ain't got no type of ethnicity that is related to the people from the transatlantic slave trade, who they call blacks, Negroes, and so forth, who are the real Israelites. All right, when those people were took to Armenia, and then when you read in the New Testament where Jesus say he looking for the lost tribes, them the folks that he would understand as being taken away, that he was looking for, because the other Israelites way back thousands, almost, man, 700 years ago, man, before Jesus was born, it wouldn't make no sense to be looking for them. So he was really looking for the ones that was took to Armenia, and that's why come his disciples was hanging around Turkey and or Anatolia, and back in the days it had the Greek names on a lot of the places that's in Turkey and so forth. All right, Israelites believe in history created by others that we abandon our heritage to, and it's easy to see. It's easy to see and easy to understand once you know that we went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah, man, to do the Egyptian religion, and I got plenty videos going into that. Man, it's real easy to understand. It's real easy to understand, and then when you understand that we was all captured in Africa, and it took 275 years to remove us, and then that's why come these peoples don't have no curses on them. All these folks, you know what I'm saying? That's the men that's in Africa and so forth, that's claiming the Israelite heritage, and then how they got it is that the Sephardists, who are really Edomites, the Sephardim, after being kicked out of Spain, went back into Africa, and they already had been into Africa a long time ago, and set up trading posts and doing trade with the Africans, and taking stuff to India, China, and everywhere, international traders and so forth. And then how did they would, start transatlantic slave trade, you know? All right. Israelites believe everything, and especially the Ethiopian Jews, you know what I'm saying? Israelites swept down, man, that they Israelites, and then, they don't know that those folks, I got a video explaining how they come from Sana, and it's in their history that's in Yemen. And then I got a video not too long ago that I showed where all the all the Jews in Yemen, man, all the Jews in Yemen and so forth, the Yemenite Jews, and how it was a whole bunch of them, man, a whole bunch of them, and then how that they was everywhere. Look, and look at this. I just finished. Look, the forced conversion on the Edoms to Judaism, 130 BC. They will be all over Arabia and help create the new religion, Islam, because that's gonna be the only way that they can get Israelite history and so forth into their religion, is if they had contact with people that had the Israelite heritage. And then that's why Islam see the Sephardists as Israelites. They see the Sephardists as Israelites because, or the people of the book, or the people of the covenant, is because they was in Arabia when the religion was created, and they are kindred, and so they're gonna embrace them as the holy people, and then trying to say that they have some holiness in some kind of way off them. And then that's why they come with that old new religion that, Prophet Abraham ain't endorsed Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. And then how they try to blame them religions on the prophet. False. False. A lot of Israelites, they believe in that stuff, man. And they believe that the people, we abandon our heritage to history is real history, and they be teaching that history. And they think that they have the Israelite history under control, and they be so far from the truth. That's like, I'm going to show this real quick. And, this is easy to understand right here, man. It's not hard to do a little research. Sometimes when you read Israelite history, man, you got to back check it out, check the source who wrote it, see if the peoples wrote it that's claiming the Israelite heritage. You got to wonder about it and wonder what's the motive. Now, you have Israelites that's writing false history off the false history that they done acquired. So, man, it's a mess, man. It's really a mess. But if you understand that we only have Tanakh history, and then you research that history, then you're going to kind of like get it correct. You're going to kind of like develop a understanding of what's going on if you spend your time in the history that we are responsible for. And that's what they call the Old Testament. If you spend your time researching it, then you're going to come into the conclusion of that we broke covenant during the Babylonian Wars, especially if you understand dates and timeline. But look here, let me show you this. Let me show y'all this. Alright. Alright, look. Scythopolis. Alright. Alright, look, the Greek name, look. Its Greek name, Scythopolis, is very likely derived from a colony of Scythians who invaded Palestine in the 7th century BCE. Herodotus tell you about it and left some of their numbers behind. Pliny history tell you about it. John Malus, Chronographic, will tell you about it. George Sinicelus, he tell you about it. But what Israelites don't understand is during the Babylonian Wars, the Scythians who settled in Scythopolis are the people that are responsible for destroying the Assyrians, destroyed their empire, and then they made up the Babylonian army, and that they would come settle in our land in ancient Beth Shean, and they would call it Scythopolis during Greek time, the city of the Scythians. That's Ashkenazi. He been in our heritage since the Babylonian Wars. A lot of Israelites don't understand this. They can't comprehend this. And that how they just, man, just totally blank to real history. Look at this right here. Look. This is in the Scythians. This, look, wandering tribes in the immense region north of the northeast of. See, Almighty Yah called them down. He told Prophet Jeremiah to call them down. If you read Jeremiah, man, it's the first chapter or the second chapter. He asked him what he see, and he said he see a seething pot in the north, and that seething pot was gonna come, and everybody was gonna set their gate and throne at the gates of Jerusalem. And these folks was them. Look, wandering tribes in immense regions north and northeast of the Black and Caspian Sea. That's right up here. Look, they would whoop Assyria. If, if, if this is they hangout up in here, in Assyria is right here, and then they destroy Assyria, and then go destroy them folks, and then hook up with them, and then come get us and run us this way, cause all the enemies is that way. All right, that's Ashkenazi. All right. They are said by Herodotus to have made an incursion into southwestern Asia and Egypt some 700 years before, Christ and Jesus. And it was perhaps just what I said 700 years before. But with that New Testament, that all our problems come down and the real Israelites was chased off, and out of the New Testament, it's the peoples that settled in our land, and they made up some of the New Testament folks, especially in the Discopolis cities where Jesus hung out at. Look, and it was perhaps a fragment of this host located in ancient Bethshan, which gave that city its classical name, Scythopolis. And uh, 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 in, let's see, what's that say? This says in Colossians 3:11, Scythians appear to signify the rulers of barbarians. Well, the Sephardists and the Edomites who occupied the land and had control in the New Testament, gonna look at them as barbarians, because the Edomites been in our heritage a long time. And the Edomites was those Sephardic folks. They was all together. Look, Scythians, the word does not occur in Hebrew or the Old Testament, but the skeptic insert. All right, Scythopolis explanation is being the same as Bethshan. The same occurs in Apocrypha. They tell you where the word Scythians at and how the Scythians was interacting. And when you read the book of Maccabees, you're reading about the Sephardi's interactions with the Scythians and the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, and it was during that era and so forth. I got a video about showing that the Hasmoneans and all them were Sephardim, Edomite, Amorites, and so forth. But all right, as you read about the Scythians, man, it go on and tell you, what I'm saying, how they worship and how terrible they was. Almighty Yah sent the worst of the worst on us, because we was some terrible Israelites anyway, and how we was doing, man, some abominable things. We was doing the Canaanite culture, but he sent somebody a little worse than we was, and then they got us up off the land during the Babylonian wars. That'd be Ashkenazi. Look, they broke through the barrier of the Caucasus in 632 BC and swept down like a swarm of locusts upon Media and Assyria, turning the fruitful fields into a desert, pushing across Mesopotamia. They went to Babylon and hooked up. They was already in Babylon. They had took Chaldea over. Meaning then they gonna try to say that they made it as far as Egypt. Meaning they settled in our land. Look, and turning the fruitful fields into desert across Mesopotamia, they ravaged Syria and were able to invade Egypt with Parmaceuticus, who was besieged. Ashdod brought them off by rich gifts, but they remained in Western Asia for 28 years, according to Herod. All right, and 28 years. It is supposed that a company of them settled in Bethshan, and from this circumstance it received the name Scythopolis. But we know that the Ashkenazi is the Scythians. Look, after the captivity it was called Scythopolis, the city of the Scythians, who about 640 come down from the steepies of south and settled in the promised land. Look, the Scythians consisted of Pastor, they was all by the Black Sea, and they moved in on us. Look, the invasion of Syria and threatened attack upon Nineveh. It's just, you see that the prophet Nahum told them to get Assyria, and they destroyed they destroyed Nineveh. And then look, it is often look in Jeremiah. It is often thought that in the early years of his career, Jeremiah had in mind the Scythians when he spoke of the enemies from the north. Just what I said. It's common sense if you understand history like I'm showing it, and then when you read this type of stuff, you'll see that you're right on point. See, you can read this and you can believe it and then not understand the history that I show. And then, you wouldn't really understand this like you're supposed to. But when you understand it the way that I show it, then you understand. These folks moved into our land during the Babylonian Wars, the Scythians, and they settled. And they settled in our land. In the 7th century BC, they were driven out of their original seat. All right, a whole bunch of folks. That's Gomer kids. Look, Gomer kids moving around. Heritage for 28 years, the Scythians ruled. All right, and then they would come on to our land. All right, and then, you know what I'm saying, I want to do something and show you folks this. It's easy to understand Israelite history now. You don't have to use the other people's history that we abandon our history heritage to, or you should question, is this our real history, or is this the history that the other people wrote about our history? That's what you Israelites got to start doing. That's what you Israelites got to start doing. You that's what you got to start doing. That's what you got to start doing. Look at this. In rabbinic culture, look. In rabbinic literature, the descendants of Ashkenazi was first associated with the what? Scythians. And then they come settle in our land. I just showed you all this. That's Ashkenazi interest into the Israelite heritage. So he been around for a long time. Look, the origins Ashkenazi. Certainly the Hebrew name of the land of the people known to the Assyrian Azushki and the Greeks as the Scythia, the Scythians. They settled in our land during the Babylonian Wars. The Assyrians called them Eshku or Sika for the Scythians in Assyrian, in the Akkadian inscriptions and so forth. So, they would come settled in our land because the prophet Jeremiah said the peoples from the north would, come to our land and settle because we couldn't stop being evil and wicked. And that's what the book of Jeremiah is about. So you Israelites, you could just use our history and be secure, or you can use the history that others created about our history that's false, that you can't get spiritual off of. How you gonna create or get some spirituality off false history? A lot of you Israelites read history that others created about our heritage, and you think you got a sense of holiness, or that you spiritually aware and so forth. Okay, that's a good feeling, but I'm here to tell you it's false because it's all false history. A lot of Israelites don't want to accept that they didn't embrace some false history. That's like them Israelites that went into Demona in 70. The Israelites that went into Demona believe in 70 AD that we went into Africa in 70 AD, and then that caused our enslavement, and that we was pre-exposed to the Greek culture and a whole bunch of other cultures that was in the promised land that had been there. You know, our history was even written in Greek. So why in the world we didn't take no Greek scriptures into Africa with us and get enslaved some kind of way with it? Because that's false. That was the Sephardists that went into Africa in 70 AD. A lot of Israelites don't even know that Ashkenazi been in the land, and that's why come when them folks be saying uh 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 uh, uh in Revelations something about Jesus. All right, Edom was talking to Ashkenazi. Look, Edom was talking to Ashkenazi in that Revelations 2:9. Edom had temple and Ashkenazi had synagogues. And that's why Ashkenazi controlled the Israelite heritage today, and they got synagogues instead of the temple that the Sephardists want or really know not to build, because they know that's going to bring speedy destruction upon the land. Start building some temples that the Israelites ain't built or part of building and so forth. And we have a certain place that we have to build to worship when we come back in the hills overlooking Jerusalem. But okay, Israelites use a false history created by people that we abandon our heritage to. I show Ashkenazi come getting in our heritage during the Babylonian wars. That's us fighting against them in the book of Jeremiah. And in the book of Ezekiel, they would capture us. And that was like the first uh, uh, times we had a conflict with them when they came during Ezekiel time in 595 BCE. And then a few years later, man, they come back because we didn't listen and get the understanding that we wasn't supposed to be doing Egyptian religion on the promised land. It is that they come back the second time to chase us off. And then that's when we discontinued our heritage by saying that we wanted to do Egyptian religion. And that'd be this right here. Us saying this, we could never recover from this. Most Israelites don't even have this in their history showing that we broke covenant for Egyptian religion. Man, you got to be kind of lost and really don't understand Tanakh history or biblical history if you can read this and not understand it. Because when the Israelites went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion, they never returned back to the promised land. When the little exiles, the little fruit come back from Babylon, that the people that went into Africa to do the Egyptian religion never come back. And then that's us. That's us when you get to here. Look, thereupon they answered Prophet Jeremiah had, after we was getting chased out the land, Prophet Jeremiah had caught up to us. We was going into Africa and by way of Egypt, and he had caught up with us. And you know, we sent him to the Creator to say, hey man, if we, you know, see you to the Creator and tell him that we're gonna do everything he say do, you know, Prophet Jeremiah said, okay, I'm going to go to the Creator and see what he say. And whatever he say, that's what y'all going to have to do. And then he went to the Creator. And, you know, the Creator gave him a message. Told us to go back to the promised land. Don't go into Egypt, Africa, and to go back to the promised land. Remember, Egypt borders is not what the League of Nations had. The Egypt border way over there in Libya and the Sudan, and we way in the western parts of it, hiding and so forth. But anyway, we sent Prophet Jeremiah to go see what we should do. Prophet Jeremiah go to the Creator. The Creator tell us, don't go into Africa to live and worship and stay, but to stay on the promised land and to do, you know, what he told us to do. And then this is what we said. Thereupon they answered Jeremiah, all the men who knew that their wives had made offerings to other gods and all the women present, a large gathering, and all the people who live in Petros in the land of Egypt. We will not listen to you in the matter about which you spoke to us in the name of the Lord Elohim. On the contrary, we will do whatever thing that we have uh, uh, vowed, to make offerings to the Queen of Heaven and to pour out libations to her, as we used to do, we and our fathers, our kings, and our officials in the towns of Judah, in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty to eat. We were well off and suffered no misfortune. But ever since we stopped making offerings to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out libations to her, we have lacked everything, and we have been consumed by sword and by famine. Man, we had to be stoned out of our minds. See, Israelites not going to teach this. Let me see. And we make offerings to the Queen of Heaven and pour out libations to her. Is it without our husbands? You see, man, we were stoned out of our mind when we went into Africa. That's that serpent culture that was tricking us into going into Africa to worship the multiple god system. That's why it was easy to put the multiple god system on the Israelites in slavery, because we was pre-exposed to it already. See, Israelites not going to teach none of this stuff. They going to teach fairy tales, history that sound good and make you feel good and so forth. You know, these are facts right here. And these are facts that the people we abandon our heritage to even agree with. All right, shalom, Israelites. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.